What's up, man? You hear me?
Yeah, what's up, man?
Oh man. Hold up for a second. Gotta turn down my TV in the background.
All right, I'll meet you and start. All right, what's up, y'all? This is Aaron Riven at the Zoom class today with my buddy Rob. He's up here, always in the house. We're having a Zoom meeting about history today. Not any particular history, but I just wanted to talk about any history that you want to talk about and how important history is, you know what I'm saying, to everyone. What's up, y'all? Yeah, what's up, man? What's up, everybody? My background is coming in. I'm talking to the background noise. I'll put that on mute. Yo, anyway, I'm back, yo. And I want to talk about history, like how I feel about history. History is like very important to me. It's very important because, just about everything you do has history about it. Like there's a history that goes into everything that we have right now, like in America. Being American in everything. There's history. There's a lot of history behind it. It's very important, but we don't get taught a lot of it. You know what I mean? So any tidbit of history that I hear that I didn't know is cool. And now we are in an era where history is being rewritten to be corrected and show the true history of America versus the mythology that we've always been taught. And that's what I love about, 2022. That's the one thing. If I get anything about from 21 and 22, it's some history that I've never known or history that I hadn't thought about in years. And how important it is. I didn't even know how important it was until the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, that's when the history kind of hit me because, we saw a lot of things happen in this country because of the lack of true history that's been taught to us. We've been taught all this fantasy stuff and fictional book reading stuff where a lot of our history in the books that I grew up with came from. And now people are exposing the thought that history is a very important thing to know. You know what I mean? So I love the fact that history is changing in our country and we're starting to talk about the true history of America, African Americans, Asians, anybody who came to this country, which really needs to be documented and taught so that we all can truly be living in a true melting pot. But I'm going to get off of that. I'm going to let someone else speak on it if they want to. My man Rob is here. He's first here. Hey, Carmen, what's up, Eric? Yo, I'm going to let Rob go. And go ahead, brother. You got something about history you want to speak on specifically or however you want to phrase
Sort of specifically. I am a history buff and who specializes in both World War II and the Civil War. And I am a huge fan of the Ken Burns documentaries on pretty much every war we've ever, been in. What I like about the Civil War, I mean, don't get me wrong, I obviously, the amount of Americans on both sides was very unfortunate. Young people, 18, 19-year-olds dying for a cause they really shouldn't have been in the first place. But what makes what gathers my attention more than anything else about the Civil War is that you still have people in the South who still believe, and I argue with these people on YouTube all the time that the Southern folks fought the war not to preserve slavery, but more about the lack of freedoms they saw themselves losing because Abraham Lincoln and stuff like that. So and I enjoy debates. I enjoy all sorts of good debates. And what I always throw at them, I say, all you have to do is check the articles of secession from every state in the South, and
it.
everyone specifically stated that the reason why they were seceding from the Union was to preserve slavery
That's
for the
right.
South. And what kills me, and it's one YouTube guy, I wish I could say it verbatim like he said it, but basically it was like the way they looked about slavery is like they did not mind keeping folks of color in bondage, and us getting killed and sold off and whatever like that, just to prop up um basically the lives of everyone else. And I get it, all very few folks in the South actually were slave owners, so it's not, so that's what they kind of throw at you all the time. Well, you know most people were poor, they couldn't own no slaves. That didn't matter. The whole South benefited from the act of slavery, so you didn't have to be an actual slave owner who had a plantation, stuff like that. The entire South benefited for, because they sold those goods over to Europe and different parts of the world. So it's like they didn't have to be an actual slave owner. Their whole economy was based around the South, and they had no problems continuing that on. Regardless, if the South would have won, it might have taken another 40, 50 years before we finally got freed. So um, it just boggles the mind that people still, this became a hot button debate when the monuments first started coming down. And it's, so it was about, oh well, it's our heritage and all this other type of stuff, not about slavery. But then you look up the date that these monuments were built, and the majority of them weren't built right after the Civil War. The majority were built around the civil
Civil
rights
rights
era.
movement.
What's
Yes.
that? Yeah, to basic right in the middle of town center, to basically intimidate people of color. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So again, I could talk all day about history and, like I said, the Civil War and World War II and stuff like that. I mean, shucks, even it took me years to finally watch as an adult, Gone with the Wind, which is a classic movie. And what I steal from that movie is the fact that the South really thought like this fight versus the North was going to be like a cakewalk. They were like, man, them North people, they ain't got the guts for this. Even though if you study both, like the North had pretty much every advantage, with the factories, the industries, the schools, stuff like that. But they was like, man, the North don't want the smoke. And it just, I mean, they were wrong, obviously. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I'll pass it on to somebody else. But I'll tell you, I watch YouTube videos on top of YouTube videos, and I pay my respect to anyone who lost their lives in battle and stuff like that. And there's some people who did some really great um, YouTube videos on like the Southern cemeteries and about the people, but I always take exception when they try to praise some Southern general who I'm like, I can't praise these guys because their whole thing was keeping my forefathers in bondage, and they would have had no problem whatsoever keeping the status quo. So they weren't brave heroes. They wanted to keep people in slavery.
It is what it is, man. Real history is tough. You know what I mean? Because when you gotta, I think it's tough for the people who have to follow behind, because it's tough because that's your people. You know what I'm saying? I consider all my Americans my Americans. I wouldn't be who I am without all the people who participated in America, even the most evil of us. I'm an American because of all the people who have been here. You know what I mean? We have a lot of things to fix. You know what I'm saying? History shows us that we can fix it, but history shows us that it can be undone too. So the battle to try to take America into like I guess a more fair, according to the Constitution kind of situation, you know what I'm saying, is hard because it's all about the numbers in America. You know what I'm saying? It's all about the numbers. Numbers decide how America's ran. And if you don't have the numbers, we're what are we, 14, 15% now? You know what I mean? So yeah, 15%. That means that like 85% of America is outside of the African American spirit. You know what I'm saying? So I try to I try to understand every side. You know what I mean? But I like to look in the past just to see, you know what I'm saying, the truth of who we are. You know what I mean? And why we think the way we do. And I think history is very important for me on that point. And you know what? I see Carmen here. Carmen, hey Carmen, you still up, baby? Did you want to speak on anything, or did you just want to hear, honey? I
She just want to
unmuted you.
hear.
I'll be a listener today.
Are you listening today? All right, you rest and enjoy the ride, baby.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, since Andre, Jay, which one of y'all want to go on history, yo?
You
Nobody?
can let Jay go first. I'll go after him since he was on before me.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, brother.
Okay, now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with Carmen tonight. I'm just listening. I'm trying to get some other stuff done. So.
Oh, y'all just here to be seen.
No. I'm here to learn, brother. I'm here to learn.
Well, you ain't gonna learn much from me, brother. I was a bad student. Yo, go ahead, Andre. Go ahead, man.
All right. Well, my thing is, they just need in the education curriculum, the United States, they need to put the true history in the history books and not all this craziness that they have. Like everything is so whitewashed as we grew up in the 70s and 80s with history and everything. And now, like the greatest thing that put the truth out there was the internet. Because now you can't hide anything. Everything's out there now, the truth. But even with that, they still won't put it in the curriculum, because if minorities and even women started knowing the truth of all the things that they've done to make America great, then, we would come more together and be united. You know what I mean? We would do better things. There would be less people in jail. It would be less people getting framed to go to jail. You know what I mean? Because more people know about themselves and have more pride. So I think like it all starts with too, like how can I say, like even Jesus. He was the picture that you see mostly of Jesus, pretty much one of the Pope's sons. That's how the picture came out. And the truth about it is he was actually a person it tells you right there in the Bible Revelations, he was actually the bronze skin and hair of wool. So he's actually either a black Jew or a dark Jew or something like that. So, that should tell you that right now, with that alone, how things have always been done. And basically it comes to, for me, when it comes to history too, is that they won't, if they're rich, old white men who don't want things to change because they're at the top, and if the knowledge was known, they wouldn't be so much at the top anymore. You know what I mean? And then they wouldn't have cheap labor. See, most of that comes business-wise, because if people are uneducated, don't know their true history, they won't have the pride, they won't have the, let's go do it, you know what I mean? And that cheap labor will always be there. So that's one of the main reasons why we don't know our true history. Like even with women, like how you talk about going to the moon and outer space and all that stuff. If it wasn't for women, it would have never happened. But all through our lives, we're 53, we're in our 50s. All through our lives, we always thought that it was pretty much all men running NASA. You know what I mean? That did all that stuff, got us to the moon, helped us beat the Russians, when it was really women.
Oh, we were like in our 50s when we learned that, right?
Yeah. No, we was in our 40s. I think when it came out. They came out in our late 40s, either late 40s, early 50s, yeah. And we didn't even know it was women that started all that stuff out. That it was a woman, like cataracts. It was a woman who actually, it was a black woman, like it was a black woman in NASA, and actually was a black woman who cured cataracts with a machine she made. She was actually in California, I think it was like UCLA, I think it was, where she had two problems. One, she was the main thing because she was a woman. Second thing, she was black. You know what I mean? So she had to go overseas, come back, and get a machine done. And people said it was always blind for life. She actually cured for the cataracts machine. Like you have that going on. You know what I mean? So, and there's so many, I would say, black inventions, you know what I mean? Black doctors, you know, all types of stuff, artists and
A black woman
everything.
invented the GPS.
Huh?
A black woman, a doctor, invented the GPS.
Yeah, yes. You know what I mean? You got a, you know, black man created walkie-talkie, you know, the toilet, you know, elevator doors, you know what I mean? It's just a lot of inventions and stuff. And then with the women, you know what I mean, doing their thing, you know what I'm saying? With the like being in the wars, you don't hear about all that kind of stuff, a lot of stuff that they've done. You know, someone would hang on the planes like during World War II and drop bombs, do all types of stuff, man. So like, but they don't let you know these things, you know, and it is crazy, you know, but the history will show like how much like we all accomplished, but they will never teach that in school. You know what I mean? It's like they always talk about what's that Galileo about how he know how to read the stars and all that crap. But he was a joke. Like he went to Africa, he went to Egypt. So the Africans taught him how to read all the stars. That's how he learned. But they make it like he was this great thing. He wasn't. He learned all that stuff from the Egyptians. So the Egyptians which basically were true African, not the Egyptians today, but Egyptians, the real Egyptians before they got taken over, were African Americans. You know what I mean? Pretty much taught the world how to do everything.
They were
Martial arts
astrologers.
came from
They
Africa.
were real astrologers.
They were real astrologers. Like their martial arts came from Africa. Like it's a lot of stuff, you know, they just leave out. You know, even when the Roman Empire was at its peak, kicking butt, like it was like this tribe called Kush. You know what I mean? And they were known for the warriors, badass warriors who basically they were really known for the archers because they was known for like hitting you in the eyes when they would send the archers out and shoot arrows at you. They were known for shooting you and killing you, hitting you through the eye. You know what I mean? So when it was a female actually that was ruling the Kush at the time when the Romans was at its height, and she sent a golden arrow bow to the emperor and said, "This will either be peace or it can be war, but I'm gonna let you choose, but choose wisely." You know, you don't hear about that kind of stuff, but that's an actual true fact. You know what I mean? He never came down to Kush though. They never came down to Kush. They took over Egypt, but they never came down to Kush. You know what I mean? So it was just a lot of things like even in Japan, you know, there was actually a African samurai back when Nobugandu, I think he was the one he was the big time ruler back then that was feared by all the Japanese.
Yazuki.
Yeah. Yasuki, yeah. So, you know what I mean? He was the only non-Japanese person that was actually a samurai back then. You know what I mean? So there's just a lot of things that goes on. Like everybody know about the Tuskegee Airmen, you know what I mean? The flying stuff and stuff like that. But then too, they try to erase some stuff where, you know, and then, you know, the first heart surgery was actually the white guy performed it, but actually was the black guy who actually told him what to do. That never got any real, you know.
Because he didn't have that title behind his name.
He didn't have the title behind his name, but he was the one who showed him and everybody how to do it. He finally get the recognition. And he taught doctors all over, you know, taught all the doctors at the place. So, but the real thing they try to erase too is they always say McVeigh. Jimmy McVeigh was the one that was the first, like, when he had the Oklahoma bombing, that was the first, you know, I mean, first one that we did to ourselves, but that wasn't necessarily true. The first one actually from Oklahoma was what they call Black Wall Street, was when, you know, Tulsa was all the blacks they were like a Black Wall Street. They would fly over to Europe and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It was a rich town. Like everybody's doing everything. You would get your meat from this guy, everybody get a haircut from this guy. And the towns around them, they were white. They were just jealous. And next thing you know, someone said that some person touched the girl's butt, whatever, as they always usually do back then. And what happened was they went and going in there, they killed mugs, they burned down all the buildings in that town. And even the police went in there killing the blacks. And they even flew planes and dropped bombs on the town. Yeah. So that was actually the first, you know, I forgot what you said. I forgot what you say for that. The first
terroristic homeland crash.
Yeah, homeland terroristic, thing that we had. You know
terrorism,
what I mean?
It was terrorism. It was an art attack on terrorism.
You know, and then, you know, they would make it where you know, always portray blacks as being, you know, lazy and all this, but every time going through the 1800, 1900, every time blacks would come up, most of the time they would either burn the town down or kill the people, or the government would do an eminent domain and take the land. So that happened all the time. So that was the narrative, but the narrative is, if you push this narrative, women weak, they can't do nothing, they can't vote, they can't do this, and blacks at the time both are minorities, then you will always have that cheap labor going on. So they're not educated. You know what I mean? Every time you get a good educated school or something like that, someone comes along and makes sure they destroy it. That's in a bad neighborhood. Because why? Because that's where the cheap labor is. See, if people would really go and look at your true history, you would learn a lot of things. You know what I mean? So I think that's it. You know,
But you gotta understand, the school system as a whole was built for people to work in warehouses, not to work in a real field.
Fields, right. And you also, I mean, and then you gotta look at the Chinese too. You know, Chinese, if people don't understand, people don't even know that when it comes to history, Chinese was the only group of people that they made and they put an act in Congress or something like that, and in the Constitution, where they could never be legal at one time. You know what I mean? And if they came, they would be extradited back to China. They could never own any land, any property, and they could never be a citizen. They actually drew up an I forgot the name of Exclusion Act. It was called something Exclusion Act. So the Chinese Exclusion Act, I think it was called. So yeah, so the Chinese, that's when they was doing all the railroads and stuff in America. They was getting beaten and killed. So that was when that came. They made sure they wouldn't get anything. So they couldn't even be a citizen. So they got that thing written up. So, you know, there's a lot that goes on about the history of America, you know, and then being a military person, you know, the military used to go out to them small towns, you know, some of the small white towns, some of the small black towns, something like that. And they would actually drop bombs on them and see what would happen. So we actually killed our own people when it comes to the military thing. We actually killed our own people, even killed our own soldiers too. They were sending soldiers out in the field, drop something on them, you know, see how the reaction was. So, so that's the way it was. But what people forget is America was actually built from rapists, murderers, thieves, and drugs. It was
built for war.
Was the worst. They was the worst of the worst. That's why England threw them out. They were the worst of the worst. So, I mean, come on, you know, that's what you're working with. So, you know, when you start learning your true history about things, you know what I mean? Like women, back in them days, boy, you see, you open up your mouth, boy, you find yourself in an insane asylum. You know what I mean? That was great. They did it. That maybe like
they were called, and then, you know, back in the 1600, they were called witches.
Yeah, it's called witches. Yeah, priests would be trying to rape them. They'd be like, no. They was calling them a witch. And you just burn them up before they could say something if they raped them. Something like, oh yeah, all that stuff used to go on, man. So, you know, Columbus didn't discover America. I discovered America. Native
Not even
Americans.
that. You know, if you were left-handed, you were they considered you they considered you
the devil. The devil.
Yeah. The devil. Yeah. If you're left-handed, yeah.
Yeah, you see, because remember, mom, they made mom right with her right hand.
Yeah, that's what they used to do. They used to do that. Yeah, that didn't go away fast. You know what I'm saying? They were doing
it. If you was left-handed, something was wrong with you. You was evil.
The devil possessed you. The devil possessed you, man. You were possessed by the devil. You were left-handed. When I was in school, all the kids would be like, I was a weirdo. I'm left-handed, so everybody would be like, I was a weirdo.
And see, I was a weirdo too because I was right-handed, but when I did everything with my feet, I was always left foot. So if I kick or do anything like that, I kick with my left foot, but I was right-handed. So people used to say something to me about that too. So, but the history books, when it comes to history too, you know, you gotta learn a lot of stuff, like, you know what I mean? So they used to hide stuff like Egypt, you know, how all the noses were broken on mugs, you know what I mean? And it's crazy, like how they used to just break stuff, say what, you know, so people can learn the truth. But the thing is too, there was one African tribe, because we watch the African history thing, there's one African tribe that became Christians. I think it was, I forgot what country it was in Africa, but they were never taken over by the colonizers. Nobody. They've always been free. The only ones that was Christians in that, and the first ones that was Christians in that country, in Africa. And they were never taken over. Never. So why? They got like churches that was in the ground. So They didn't sit up high. They sat in the ground. They dug into the ground and made their churches there. It is really beautiful and all that stuff. And the cuisine here in America. You know, when George Washington's wife with that book out about cooking, all that was from like, you know,
that was from an African American slave that she had. Yeah,
slaves who did all
he's
the
a
cooking.
famous chef. I forget it.
Master chefs in America was 2 African slaves. They were the first 2 master chefs in America. You know what I mean? And then you had the guy who was an oyster, who did oysters. Like, you know, a lot of blacks don't like oysters, but shoot, back in like the 20s, man, like your biggest oyster dude was from New York in America. He's a black guy, actually. He started getting them out of the water. Then he did a stand, and then he had his own place. Matter of fact, people from Wall Street always came to his place and ate the oysters and everything. He hooked it up so good. He had a great restaurant, made money. When he died, they actually shut Wall Street down for that day, and they all came to the funeral. That's how bad he was. You know what I mean?
That was in a special, right? That was in the
High on the Hog, something like that.
High on the Hog, a special that was on Netflix called High on the Hog.
Yeah,
and what I like about that, well, I didn't know, right? This is what I didn't know. I didn't know how much like food you could actually take food and link it to the history of it, wherever it came from. You know, some food can be like, you know, has history with it. And just like you were saying, you know, they were talking about a chef called Hercules, you know what I'm saying, who was this great chef and had all these recipes. And he was actually known all over America. You know what I'm saying? Because he was like, I think he was
George Washington's chef.
George Washington's or Thomas Jefferson's? I forget which one.
Hercules was George Jefferson. I mean, George Washington's. He was George Washington.
Yeah. He was like a world-renowned chef. Like, I think they sent him away to learn how to cook.
No. George Washington, Hercules, he learned on his own. The one that Jefferson had.
Jefferson, that's the one that was sent away. Well, anyway, it's on High on the Hog. High on the Hog. You could, you know, it's a Netflix special. If you got Netflix, watch it. There's a lot of crazy history in that one program about food. It tells you so much about who we are, where we came from, and why these foods were made and discovered. You know what I mean? There's something in there about rice, right? That I never knew that we were one of the main. Cotton wasn't the only slavery up in here, yo. You know what I'm saying? We already had a history of growing rice and stuff. So down south, there was a certain type of rice that everybody used all over America at the time, and we brought it over here. Like it was our rice. It was the rice that, you know, could grow good in America, and a lot of people liked it, and we picked it. We were like one of the number one rice countries in the world at the time. A lot of people don't know. So they always think picking cotton. There was way more to slavery than picking cotton. That was just great big thing, but it was just one part of slavery. It wasn't all slavery. You know what I mean? There was a lot of different things we did as slaves. Some of us were even educated just so we could do, you know, the job as a slave correctly. You know what I mean? So, you know, we got a lot more history than just slavery. You know what I'm saying? And I always love when something pops up that I did not know, you know, and it's like, it's a true history of this country. And we all we take it for granted because we don't know it. We're not taught it. Everything you consider history, like you can go into food history and take forever. Your whole life, you could be just doing food history and learning like all these different things about different countries and where they came from. And that's why I like watching the food channels, the Food Network channels, all those different places, because a lot of times they do tell you about the history of the food and how it came to pass and why it came to pass, you know, at least to the best of their ability. And I love it, man. You know what I'm saying? I love the history when it comes to food, man, for real, for real. It's just so interesting.
You know, like Jack Daniels, you know what I mean? That was actually made by a black slave, Jack Daniels. It wasn't made by Jack. It was actually made by his slaves. But one thing I loved about Jack Daniels was the slaves and the white people that worked for him, he paid them all the same. That was unheard of back then in the slavery days. That was all. He paid them all the same. And when they took pictures, all the blacks and the whites were all taken together in one picture. Yeah. So, yeah, Jack Daniels, he was that dude, man. He was a good dude. He paid him. You know what I mean? So all I say is like that. You know what I mean? So this is like a lot of history and stuff like that that's here that people don't know. You know what I mean? So, and that's a good thing. You know what I mean? I'm glad they finally did the Native Americans when they went to World War II. Like, that was another reason that we got saved and we're not all speaking German or Japanese because the Germans knew all the languages in America but the Native American language. So
yeah, not just that, they were able to crack codes too. It's like we used their language so they couldn't crack them.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, it's a lot of things. And the one who cracked the German code was gay from England.
Yeah.
You know?
Was what?
He was killed too, though, because he was gay. He was killed though.
Yeah, you know, and that's the crazy part. He was a gay white dude who saved pretty much almost maybe the world, you know, because he cracked the code and made them think stuff. And then after all that was done, they saved all England. Especially England was all torn up. Saved all England. Just because he was gay, they ended up killing that dude. I'm like, but he was the one that saved everybody. I was like, damn, yo. You know,
that tells you how far we've come with equal rights. Like, you know, a lot of people think that, you know, what we're fighting now is the real fight. Look, let me tell you something. We've been fighting for hundreds of years. It took us hundreds of years just to get the freedom that we have right now.
And it's a crazy thing because the rich basically kept their racism alive. And a lot of it was for not so much racism, but before, well, the white guys, they would pay crap money. Like they supposed to, like say they're paying them $5 when they should be getting 10. You know what I mean? But the way they kept them at that money was basically okay, you're getting paid more than the Negroes, when we only paying 3. Oh, okay, well then that's fine with me, as long as you pay more than them. And that's how they kept their ignorance and got all that money by paying them crappy money. That's why unions started and all that kind of stuff started. Paying them all that crappy money just off their ignorance of racism. You know what I mean? They really didn't care about racism. They just cared about the pocket.
You know, the bad thing is now a lot of the unions became corrupt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And what they did was they traded the unions. They just had some company boys jump in the union and get all the way up to where they run in the union, and that's you know, the unions agreeing to stuff that don't make no sense.
Oh no! That's we had that at the gas company in Philadelphia, PGW. You had the union president going out, hanging out, taking beers and everything with the president of the company that was running the company. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell is that? Like, but these dudes kept on voting them in all the time. You know what I mean? So it was just crazy. He had his own car. You know what I mean? Then something. I mean, it was so racist, so racist. You know what I mean? But that's why But now they had so many lawsuits. You know what I mean? Against the gas company. Now they're starting to change things because what made it so bad? Even the dudes who were white that was running. You know, some of this, dudes who were white was pissed off because you would have this young boy that would come in for 2 years. Didn't know jack crap, and he would make him a supervisor over a dude that was there 10 or 15 years who was trying to go for the supervisor position. And that was so they could control him. You know what I mean? Because they know they were going to control us. You know what I mean? We've been there too long. So, you know, there was a lot of lawsuits going on. So, yeah, something. But that's the way, you know, it's always ran through history and everything. So it's just if people just would read like about a lot of stuff, you know what I mean, how much got screwed. Like the white guy who made the windshield wipers. Remember Ford and them tried to screw him out of that money?
The black guy that made the super soaker. Nurse and them try to get him out of the money, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he had a suit too. Yeah. But I ain't know it was I thought back then with a car, when they came to windshield wipe, finally they was through 4. But no, actually, the white dude who did it, they try to do him dirty and keep all that money and actually sue them fools, yo. Yeah, that's what it comes. Oh, right there is what's his name? The one they say that Edison. Edison, like, he ain't made a light. He ain't made a light bulb. Actually, a black dude that made the filament. But he screwed over like everybody. Like he stole a lot of people's stuff. Like he was the most dirtiest dude. They got him like he was this great guy. He didn't do other stuff he did. He found out about other people's stuff and then stole their stuff and made it his own. You know what I mean? Oh, he was a true dirty dude, man. So yeah, you know the true history. It's crazy. And then what Catholic Church, like priests and all of them back in the day, they used to be able to get married. All that stuff they got married back then. You know what I mean? But then they didn't want them when the husband died or something like that. The wife and them would kids stay in the house, you know, they still stay in the building, you know what I mean? You know, but they stopped all that. You know what I mean? So I mean they'll say, you know, you're more close to the guy, but that's crap. It was all about the money. If you look at the Crusades, it's all about the money. Like the Crusades. Had nothing to do with God. That stuff was all about power and trying to take over land.
They just did it in his name, that's all.
Yeah, oh yeah. That was like really Catholic Church I always say is the most crookedest, most crooked group of people for the centuries, man. Oh no, religion, period. But you look through history, man, Catholic Church done a lot, you know. So it's just like that's why I told you, like, you gotta just read up on your true history. Not that crap they tell you, but the true history. That's why I love that.
The one thing I can say about history, right? The one thing I can say about history is that, you know what, whoever puts it out there, there's always an agenda. You know what I mean? So
they control the narrative.
You know, world history. You know, we talk bad about American history, but you know what? Our history it needs a cleansing, but world history needs a cleansing too. You know what I'm saying? We're not the only ones with bad history, with phony history. You know, using like fictional writings as a way to tell our story of our own history. You know, so you know, but I don't know the history like that, and I'm not going to pretend like I do. But I do know that ours is filled with myth and fiction. You know.
Well, you know, a lot of the Southerners in the Civil War, they didn't want to fight that war, but they had no choice. They was going to be killed, and how a lot of the you know the rich man's sons didn't have to go to war was because if you own 20 slaves or more, well, I think it was 20 slaves or more, your kids didn't have to go to war for the Confederates. You know what I mean? It was crazy. You know what I mean? The rich always
they're always getting out of it. You know what I'm saying? The rich always find a way to not have to suffer.
Well, just look at the draft and everything in Vietnam. You know what I mean? If you went to college, you didn't have to go to war. But who had the money back then? The rich did. You know, the middle class and poor.
Trump dodged it 5 times. Trump dodged it 5 times.
Yeah, but he say he a tough guy. Trump was the biggest pussy of all time. He ran like, you know, yeah, come on, man. Like, I ain't trying to hear that.
How you get drafted 5 times, though?
A lot of politicians back then, man. You know, a lot of politicians who had kids.
You gotta say he had a bone spur in his foot there that prevented him from going into the military.
A lot of money.
Well, I don't want to make this a political thing. You know what I'm saying?
I'm saying the rich.
I don't talk about Trump because he ain't that important to me, yo.
But when I want to talk about the politicians like that, and that's always been history. The rich always got their people out of war, always got their sons and daughters out of war. You know what I mean? Always. So, like, and that's what I always say. If you know,
if you got the money, you know what I'm saying? You got the money, they're gonna use it.
Right. Because if you know every time there's war, the rich people, most of the kids don't go to no war. They don't really have to go nowhere.
Unless it's like a family kind of, you know,
kind of thing. Because always
like grandfather went, great grandfather went,
Otherwise than that, the middle class and the poor be fighting wars. That's it, man. That's it. You know, so that's just the craziness, you know, of how things work. You know, so so you see. It's like a whole bunch of stuff that goes on, you know. But it is, man. And people don't know. Even when Hitler was killing the Jews and trying to take over the world and all that stuff. There was actually blacks living in Germany. People don't know that. There was actually black people living in Germany at the time, man. Going around.
What happened to them either, did they?
Huh?
No one knows what happened to them either, did they?
Oh no, some of them still lived. Some still
Some
live.
still alive?
Yeah, some still live. A lot. They tell you it's it was one of those things on Netflix too. Tell you how the
Really?
blacks was living in Germany at the time. Yeah.
What's the name of that? You know the name of that one?
I can't remember the name of that one though. I can't remember the name of that one, but it was on Netflix. You know, it could have been on Prime too. Could have been on Prime too, but I think it was on Netflix. But yeah, man, that was it was amazing. You know what I mean? How much hatred he had for everybody. He still had stuff going on, man. It was just wild. And then too about the World War II when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. You know, people don't know, like, we probably be all talking Japanese right now because when they came, destroyed all our ships. Like, they destroyed a lot of ships. Now he was the admiral that was in charge of the fleet. They wanted him to go back and finish everything off. You know what I mean? We'd have had no ships, man, at all. But he said he saw so much death on his side that he was like, no, and he turned back around.
Yeah, because they were committing suicide, crashing into the plane.
Yeah,
that was their job.
But they were winning. You know, they were winning, but he was like, I had enough. And the admiral actually turned around. Now, if that Japanese dude would have actually stayed and finished it all, man, we'd be talking about a whole bunch of different things, man.
What you want to say, Rob?
Andre, my only caveat of that, because I do the whole World War II thing a lot. I'm one of those conspiracy theorists who think that we knew the Japanese were coming because all of our aircraft carriers were out on like doing some training at the time. So we, you know, they sunk our battleships and cruisers and stuff like that. But the Japanese, not only did they not get our carriers that were out away from Pearl Harbor at the time, as much damage as they did not strike any of our fuel and oil tanks on Pearl Harbor. That would have probably set us back more than anything else because it allowed us to still use Pearl Harbor as a base as long as those fuel reserves were still there.
Yeah. But I think if the admiral would have came back with the fleet, I mean, if he'd have stayed on path with the fleet, I think he would have just finished that whole thing off. You know what I mean? And if he would have stayed, I think they would have just finished everything off and they would have came into land. You know what I mean? And then they would have came onto the land and try to take things over that way. You know what I mean?
But before we go too far off topic, because like I said, I could talk about this all day. Basically, once the United States entered that war, it was a war of attrition on our part. Like once we started producing, we were making like for every 5 carriers, they could only make like 1. So that was even if they would have taken out Pearl Harbor, even if we'd have lost the Battle of Midway that we did win, Japan was screwed because, like I said, we had too many reserves. We had our own oil. They had no oil, which is one of the reasons why they attacked us because we started cutting them off because we didn't like what they were doing in China. It was impossible for us to lose that war versus Japan because you have a very small island with hardly no natural resources. And once we started creating our own supplies, with rolling out tanks and planes and ships almost every week, it was impossible for us to lose that war because they just couldn't keep up with our manufacturing.
Yeah,
we had a warehouse on like every corner doing something. Man.
Yeah, but you gotta think
we had we were hardcore in industry and
the industrial era was crazy.
But you can't build a battleship and a warship, and it takes months for that. You know what I mean? It takes months to build them joints up.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I was being facetious in a week, but we were cranking them out.
It takes months, like 6 months to like a year to crank them joints out. But then you gotta remember, we weren't only fighting Japan, we were still fighting the Germans at the same time. So all them ships wouldn't have still been here. They'd have been still going, over towards Germany fighting them too. So we'd have been weak at that moment. And then they would have came on the shore, and then that would have been it. That just would have been it. You know what I mean?
We'll talk about this at another time.
Yeah, we'll talk about it another time. I think that would have been
But now's the time because we're talking history, baby. Y'all can go
it.
Yeah, because keep in mind too, Andre, we were cranking out so many supplies. We were sending munitions and tanks. That's not tanks, jeeps over to Russia to sustain Russia in the war. Because Russia, before they started turning the tide versus Germany,
Mhm.
they were taking a big L at
They were
first.
taking a big L.
They
Everybody was.
But we were giving them money. We gave them blankets. We gave them boots. We supplied with the Lend-Lease program. We were given a lot, and we lost a lot of ships because the U-boats were dropping our ships in the Atlantic. And that
Mhm.
being said, we lost like 1,000 ships in the Atlantic alone because of U-boats. But we were
Mhm.
still able to keep both Britain and Russia afloat because we were just, we were selling bonds to the American people, like just to keep our industry up. Women
Mhm.
working in factories. We, like I said, I said Japan attacking us. Even Yamamoto said basically, if we couldn't cripple them with Pearl Harbor, it was a wrap.
Yeah,
And with
right. That's
and,
true.
and with
That's true.
Germany, Germany, I think the worst thing they had for Hitler is the fact that Blitzkrieg was so effective in the beginning. His arrogance was like, I'm just gonna roll into Russia and just wipe them out like I
That's
did,
that's what took care of him because he thinned
Right.
himself out
He
because he had to go
told
all
himself
over
how to
the
split his
world.
troops too thin. He split his troops too
Well,
thin. Mhm.
he was fighting a war on both sides. Like
Yeah.
he couldn't get his hands on Britain because Britain's navy was on point, and so all he could do was bomb Britain from the air. But like I said, we kept Britain afloat, we kept Russia afloat, and next thing you know, he's fighting a war on two sides that he couldn't deal with anymore, and it cost him the war.
Well, but too, his people, the German people too, they didn't want a lot of them didn't want to fight the war. So what I mean. So a lot of them, wasn't trying to have it neither. A lot of them went because they was going to be killed if they didn't go. But some of them was like hiding out, all that kind of stuff, like the dogs
See,
and stuff like that.
they
Yeah. So yeah.
I don't know, but they had a change of heart once they started losing.
Yeah.
Everybody has a change of heart once they start taking them L's.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? But at the beginning, they was on point. They was cool with that. They
You
was
know
cool.
why? Because you gotta remember, Hitler came when they were at their worst.
Yep.
Yeah, but see,
You know what I'm saying?
you gotta
And he
remember because
built up the country. He built up the country with that small little fascist group he had, and took over the whole country. And everybody was eating. All of a sudden, everybody was eating. They were living good. When Hitler got when Hitler's like highest prime of his reign. You know
But
what
did
I
you
mean?
watch did you watch this special on the people of Germany during that war? The old guys, they were telling you, they were like, what Hitler and them did was they had the little ones, like the children, in
Yeah,
these camps, and he said, and they basically just brainwashed them.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But the older ones, like their parents and stuff, was trying to tell them, that already been through the World War I, first one, was trying to tell them like, no, it ain't what it is. So they would actually make them take their children, and that's how a lot of stuff happened. But during even at the height, except for the ones that was like up there, a lot of still Germans who did not want to fight in the war, who did not believe in the war. You know what I mean? Who wasn't,
Well,
someone trying to roll
I think
everything.
that's every country go through that. I think I mean,
It's
just
like
our
us in
country alone.
Vietnam.
Just think about how much we don't want to fight in any wars. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
like Vietnam for us. You know what I mean? A lot of them was like leave. Someone was leaving the country, going to other places. Yeah, that's why I
Well,
liked about the
not
special.
just
That
Vietnam. I'm thinking about all the other wars, like Korea.
mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do a draft. They had to do a draft. You know what I'm
Oh yeah.
saying? If people really wanted to fight, they wouldn't have to do a draft.
Yeah, that's why they made you. Yeah, when you turn 18, you got to go do the draft.
Yeah, so
We had to do that,
that's
man.
every country
We had
goes
to
through
do
that
that.
when they have war.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to go out and kill over these rich people and rich people problems.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
in China, when you turn 25, you have to enlist. You have to actually join the military when you turn 20.
Oh, a
So you
lot of
turn
countries are
25.
going
Yeah,
to do
there's a
that.
lot of countries like that too.
Mhm. But
Like
you
you
know what
actually
I
have to
think?
be in the military. I was like, damn, that's
Yeah, you
crazy.
have to be. Mm-hmm. You know what? I think if they had to do that here, it'd be a lot better. And I think things would be a lot better and different. You know what I mean?
I agree. I definitely
Yeah,
agree.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
You
I
think
think
if
so.
everybody here had to serve in the military, things would be different in this country?
I think so. Mm-hmm. I truly do.
Why? As a military dude, tell me why.
For me, it's just that a sense of purpose. You know what I mean? You ain't gonna be lazy. You want to do what you got to do. You know what I mean? You have a work ethic because you got to get to where you got to go. You know what I mean? I think, and I think if people, and then a lot of people don't believe they can, like, especially the poor, low middle class, and the poor, don't think they can amount to anything because where their circumstances are from. So when you go through the military, you see like a lot of things that you could do, and plus, you'll go to different parts of the country. You know what I mean? So you'll leave your little 2-block area, and you'll see what really life is really about. So I think that's my main thing about it, like, because
The discipline and exposure, you say?
exposure to like more than where you are, like different people. What I mean, like some people never been around white people. Some people never been around blacks, and Latinos, or Asians, like all that stuff. So when you get together, you start learning about each other's culture. You know what I mean? Y'all know y'all work together as a team because your life, you got to depend on each other because your life depends on it. You know what I mean? And then you get to go to different parts of the country, so you'll learn more. You know what I mean? You'll see things you never saw before. That's amazing. You know what I mean? Like my first sunset I ever saw, I was in Okinawa, Japan, getting ready for Desert Storm. That was the first time I ever saw the sunset. You know what I mean? It was the most amazing thing in my life. I was in Okinawa, Japan. So I think like, you know, the most beautiful sky I ever saw was when I was in Iraq at night in the desert. You can see the whole sky, all the stars. I saw the space shuttle when we went up in '07 to go out. You know what I mean? Saw that traveling, like most beautiful sky I ever seen. You know what I mean? So my thing is like, if you get to travel, when we go to different countries and different stuff, you can get to travel. You know what I mean? I think that your perspective on life will definitely change for the more of the positive than the negative. That's what I think about the military stuff.
Okay. Well, for the military life.
Mm-hmm. Well, you still got assholes. Don't get me wrong. You still got a lot of shit, but for the most part, you know what I mean. You'll be leaving your little area and you'll be out. You know what I mean. Meeting new people, new ways of things and new places. You know what I mean.
And everybody would know how to handle a gun. I get that.
Definitely be less crime.
Definitely be a whole lot, yeah.
In Texas, man, they all carry. You know what I mean? There ain't a whole lot of crime like that, crazy crime like that in Texas because everybody carry. You know what I mean?
It's actually the wild. It's back to the Wild West over there. You walk around with a gun all day in that bitch, man.
Actually, it's the Wild West in Philadelphia right now, yo.
No. In Texas, now they passed a law to where you don't have to carry your paperwork with you anymore. You just walk around carry.
For real?
Yep. Now that's crazy. You should have to get.
That's the real. As I said, it's the real Wild West.
No, I like that. Everybody can get it. Everybody.
Yeah. And you know what? And that's the craziest. Like, and then like,
you know what? The thing I've learned about human nature, right? Mm-hmm. People don't fuck with you when they know they can get killed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's what I know about human nature. Yo. Even these drug boys, even these tough, hardcore drug boys out here, where they learn that you know how to shoot and that you will shoot, they be like, "Hello, Mr. Redmond." You know what? They don't want to smoke. They just want to sell their drugs. They don't want no smoke.
They don't want smoke. Yeah, exactly. So that has a lot of stuff, and what I like too is about Genghis Khan. Like when it comes to history, like he was the first one that actually really did the first like type of post office kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because when Genghis Khan, when he was in power, they go from like when he would go from country to country or across this country or to the next one, he would everywhere he conquered at, he would have people with fresh horses at all these different posts. And when you needed to get information to another thing, the rider would actually ride like crazy, stop at a new, get a fresh horse, keep on going, or stop. The next person when you jump on a horse, he keep on going. So it was always traffic going back and forth where you get his information. And like Genghis Khan was a bad boy when it came to that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
But you know who
So-
stole that from?
Who?
The Zulus. The Zulus.
Oh yeah.
That's what Shaka Zulu did. He had fresh messengers all around the country, man. So that's how he got his information. That's how he planned his tactics as far as wars and stuff like that goes.
Shaka was after Genghis, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Yes.
Shaka was after Genghis.
No, he was around Genghis Khan.
I'm not sure.
I'm not 100% on that. I don't know. I'm not 100% on that. But I thought Genghis was before Shaka.
No,
I'm pretty sure.
I'm light skinned. I know, man. So don't worry about it.
Oh, now you know it's a lie. Let's talk about the history of that.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Oh man, yeah.
No, I'm only playing. Yo, look, history is very important to me, man, and that's why I watch a lot of documentaries. Sometimes I investigate stuff to other, like, oh, that don't even sound right. You know what I'm saying? So history is important, and I think it changes it can change your own mind. You know what I'm saying? Where you find out things about people, your people, other people. It's almost like discovering yourself, kind of. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you might let's just look, like a mathematics book. You know what I'm saying? You get out a mathematics book. It teaches math, blah blah blah. But when you learn the history of what happened to get to the math that you have in that book, it changes your mind about math, man. I can remember, I forget. It's been so long since I learned things about theories, but all those theories and all those different things in math books, they were all discovered. There's a history behind who discovered it and how it came to pass and how they came, what they did to make that math what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody about the.
And I think that kind of educational history on education is very important too, man. I think it's all important. History is just important no matter what type of history it is to me, because you find out so much.
And isn't it crazy about like the dude the dude that founded the X-ray? You know what I mean? He learned how to do the X-ray and all that stuff. But all that time, he never had that lead thing in front of him. They was all dying. They all died, but without him, we wouldn't have the X-ray machine. You know what I mean? But it's weird how, they come up with some stuff like way back then, they didn't know the consequences, but like how to protect them.
You ever see Radium Girls?
Huh?
Radium Girls. You ever see that? It's on Netflix. It's a pretty good movie about the women, how they were exposed to radiation. And like their teeth was coming out, their skin. It's crazy. You gotta watch that.
Oh wow, yeah, I gotta catch that. But what's funny, too, was how they, the history stuff is when I forgot the dude who became a multi-millionaire back in the 1800s. Remember when everybody was going for gold and everything? Well, when they would find silver, they would just throw it away. So a guy who knew about silver, he came, he was selling from overseas too, who knew about silver, said, hey, look, guys, I'll make my little trinkets out of it. I'll take all this silver away from you for free. So
as they had to haul the rocks away, so he would haul the rocks away for free.
That's how he became a millionaire, bro. Because they was all hunting for the gold and know nothing about the silver. So he would you gotta think about it. Just think about it. They digging for you already. Only thing you gotta come and pick it up. You're a multi-millionaire, you know what I mean? So that was crazy. The stuff that just used to go on. Yeah, oh yeah, history.
You're at the hour, right? We're at the hour, yo. And it's a pretty cool hour, yo. I had a good time with this one. This was a cool one. We might have to come back to this one day. But history will change your life. And then we got one more guy here that I did not hear from and see if he wanted to speak. What's up, Lindell? How you doing, bro?
What's up, Lindell? Look like he worked.
What's up? Bomb behind Dime. Love y'all.
What's up?
What's
What's up, boy?
Good with y'all. What's good, Rod?
What's going on, man?
Chilling,
Yo,
chilling.
you got anything you want to speak on history, Brad?
I don't know. I was just when I came in, I was just listening to y'all speak and learning some stuff that I didn't know. And like with Uncle Andre talk about the two older men who had Nazi fathers was talking about the war. Me and Uncle Aaron had seen that. Like both of their fathers was at the top. They was like behind of Hitler. One was the right hand man, one was like the left hand man. But one didn't like the other one. So it was that kind of type of complications. But I'm still pretty much learning, you know.
All right,
I'm just learning
tomorrow since you
some
guys are
stuff,
officially
you know.
opening.
So.
So I'm gonna come back tomorrow, maybe get a couple.
But this history that I do know, but y'all not talking about that, so I'm just keep quiet. Trying to keep everything that's on.
We just bringing up stuff, man. You can bring up anything you want to bring up.
No, it's stuff that there was no slave and all that stuff. But it's like we do that another time.
Yeah, we done enough of that.
Yeah. So like we do that another time. And
you know what you just reminded me of? Let me tell you something that he reminded me of just now. Roots. Oh my God. I have nothing against Roots, but man.
I hate that movie. I hate that movie. It's
my God! I swear that Roots. I loved it. I loved it when because it was exactly what we needed when it came out. Don't get me wrong. You know, it was exactly what African Americans needed because we really didn't have anybody's story on that was actually an African American at the time. So I just want to say that I was grateful for it, but oh my God, it was so commercialized and so overused and so overdone. It seemed like all we knew was how to be slaves.
I'm so tired. I don't want to see no more movies, but you know what? I want to see like the Hidden Figures. I want to see. Only thing I want to hear about like African American history, History Month. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear. The last thing I want to hear is about King, Rosa Parks, all the Mayor, Malcolm X. I don't want to hear nothing about them. I'm tired of that. You can get it anywhere. What I want to hear about is the inventors.
Hearing it a lot. Learn about her. Learn about everybody else. It's other people besides the same five you learn in school, man.
Yeah. Like I want to hear about inventors, entrepreneurs, all that kind of. That's one people I want to hear about. You know what I mean? Because the one thing I'm tired of is the woe is me black crap. I ain't trying to hear that crap no more. You know what I mean? There's too many opportunities for us now for all that stuff. You know, so I'm not really trying to hear that. But my main problem is like we got to teach our own children about our true history, and that's not being taught by us. You know what I mean? And that's sad because when I was working, more white people knew about our true history than we did. That's sad. You know what I mean? That's truly sad. Like you don't even know your own.
There wasn't really an interest because the history. I think because of the history that was taught.
Yeah, right.
There wasn't an interest in history for us. You know what I'm saying? Because all we ever was taught was slavery. You've been beat down, beat up, beat down, and there's more to us than that. We're not just people who have been oppressed. We're more than the oppression, yo.
But you know what, Aaron? Like with the internet and everything now, you know what I mean? Even my last couple of years that I was out, like there's just no reason. There's just no excuse to me anymore for that. Like with the internet and all that, even it's like I've been retired. Well, I retired at 19. So I was so you figure 2015 and 14, I was still going to people's houses. And you know what I mean? And then early in 2000 and mid 2000, going to our people's houses, and they still didn't know really anything about our true history. That's sad. But the whites did. You know, a lot of whites people did. You know what I mean?
They went to college. A lot of them went to college.
All of them go to college. They just looked some stuff up. Like they were interested and they looked some stuff up. Like not all of them went to college. So, and that's my thing about it. You know what I mean? Like, and even without college, like to me, once we started learning more about our stuff, you know, because you know
they took out African American history studies in college, man. They took it out of college.
But I'm saying like not all of them went to college. Not all the white people went to college that was quote me about stuff. They said they when some of them saw the Tuskegee Airmen, And they said, we never learned about that. And they said, I want to know more. And they just looked it up. Because I talked to some of them. You know what I mean? And then, once they learned, and they saw that Most Def movie about the black heart surgeon, or the first open heart surgery with a black dude. So, what I'm saying is, like, we, with the internet and everything, there should be no reason why most of us don't know our true history today.
But it's a will. You have to have the will to want to go look.
Yeah. And that's my problem.
If we aren't teaching our children to love history, then they're not going to love history. It's just plain. You can't. I'm not going to blame people for not looking up history when they never even knew that history was important. You know what I mean? I can't be mad at people for not wanting to know.
And some people don't care about what happened in the past. They're trying to make it now. They're trying to make it now.
Exactly.
But how does knowing that Frederick Douglass, what he did, help me get a meal now?
But what I'm saying is, if you have more people learning about like the hidden figures, like like my man who first open heart surgery, like girlfriend who invented the
like Ben Carson. Everybody knows who Ben Carson is.
Right. So things like that. But like my thing is, if more of us knew about the true history like that, you would have so many of them with the pants hanging off their ass. That's the most trifling thing I ever seen. Because but people don't understand that pants hanging off the butt. All right, Rob, the pants hanging off the butt. That all started from slavery when the master was gay and he made the slave have his hanging down and let him know to turn him on. Then eventually that went to jail, for the dude like to selling everybody he's available, and now it's on the street. You know what I mean? So to me, and I thought that fad would go away, but it's been over 20 years. You know what I mean? And
ignorance is bliss, man. Ignorance is bliss. It breeds more ignorance.
So like when I see them, man, I be like, well, are you gay? They be like, no. I'm like, well, why are you wearing your pants low? You know what I mean? Because you must be, or you must be bi. You know what I mean? I said, y'all can get married today. Just come on.
I'm gonna be real honest. They do it because the girls like it, dog. The girls chase movies that do that some shit. Yeah. The only reason why most men do anything like that is because women chase them. The woman they're looking for, the woman they want to chase. That's why it has nothing to do with them wanting to be gay. None of that shit.
No,
it's just that.
No, but I'm telling you,
No, you ain't listening. It's a fad now, and the females think it's cute, so they do it because they know they can get that ass.
Everything a man mostly does is for a woman, man. A man buys a nice car not because he likes it, because a woman likes it.
That's right. So
a man buys a big house.
No, but that's only a certain type of woman who like that type, and them things. And
that's what they're looking for, nigga. Why you ain't listening? You ain't listening. All you hear is what you think. Let me tell you, they're doing it because of the outcome. It has nothing to do with the history. They're doing it because they know that girls like the girls that they like that, and they can get pussy. They gonna get it. That's why. It has nothing to do with they're so ignorant and stupid. No, they're doing it because it gets pussy, Andre. It gets
if I
pussy.
See a rapper on TV bragging his ass in his pants, and he got all these hoes around, I'm gonna try to do the same exact shit.
It gets pussy. Plain and simple. There's no other reason. They don't do it for no other reason than it's in style right now. The girls are digging it, and I can get me some pussy. I'll be a bad boy. Only a bad boy was willing to do that kind of crazy. You know what I'm saying? And the girls be like, hey, look at him. It's what it is, bro. It is what it is. Remember back in the day when we were young, and it was cool for a lot of guys was walking around with their thumb in their mouth as grown men. Remember that?
Yeah,
why did they did
came
it?
and going. Fast as came, fast as gone.
The girls liked it. That's why they were doing it. It had nothing to be tough. The girls thought the tough guys did it, so all the guys did it because they got pussy. Period, yo. Period. It's not even anything. It's not because they lack some mind or they retarded and stupid, and not because they went to jail. It's because the girl, they know they can get some pussy. Period.
Let's get off that.
let's not mix it up. Don't even mix it up. It ain't a gay thing or a straight thing. It's all about pussy, yo.
Nah, not me. You both ways. I don't care what you say. You both ways. I don't know.
Yeah, that's because that's what you see. That's what you see because you old, Andre. Them young them girls.
All this me, bro.
That shit. Just like with the Jerry curl. The girls like the Jerry curls. All these niggas was getting Jerry curls.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same shit, Andre. It's just a fad. It is
earring. Remember when guys got the earring? The older
That's
guys
right.
were like, what the hell is wrong? We look like a damn pirate.
You remember? The only certain kind of people got earrings.
And always only be wearing in the right ear. Remember?
and then the rule changed. Now it had to be the right or the left. Yeah. Next thing you know, a handkerchief out your ass means this and all that. You know, it's just a fad, yo. It's all about and all those things are about sex and nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure. That's why I say they bisexual again. That's it. That's all the money in their closet. That's all it is to me. Mm-hmm. I'm one of them old dudes that live in the DS. That's all it is to me. Mm-hmm.
Some grandpa laws.
Yeah. all it is.
But you know what? I'm done, man. We're at the hour, man.
Yeah.
We talk about all kinds of crazy stuff now. I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready to go.
All right, man.
Turn the TV up on loud so I can hear it. I was like, yeah, I know what that means, y'all. So you know what?
See you.
Later, Negroes. I love you.
Later, love you too.
I'll see you next time, and thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it. Hold on. Before y'all go, the next one, I'm prepared today, yo. The next one is going to be on Saturday, adoption and abandonment, baby. Adoption and abandonment. So I'll see you on Saturday, baby.
All right, dude.
All right, love you all.
Love y'all too. Later.